Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Sheena Tubbs. Let's begin. Hello, ladies, and welcome to the latest episode of Black Girls Heal, sending you love and light and prosperity wherever you are, sending you connection and warmth because they are all of the things that you deserve. So in today's podcast episode, we are talking about dimming your light as a form of self-protection and why you shouldn't do that. So I've mentioned how I am on my feminine energy healing journey. And one of the things that I saw in a recent post from a group that I'm in is just talking about how when people start to own the full extent of their feminine energy, they will start to radiate. They'll start to radiate and operate out of their beauty, out of their worth, out of their confidence, have them showing up in a lot of confidence and their sensuality and sexuality and just owning a room and owning a space when they walk into it, right? And all of our distinct ways, however that looks like for us, but we are just fully embodied as ourselves. And the post also talked about that when a person is owning their space like that, it can provoke jealousy from people who are still on their journey getting there, right? And the people don't actually know that the jealousy is because it is calling out a part of themselves that they are still healing, but it feels offensive to them. It feels like that person is doing too much. It feels like that person is radiating in that way because they're trying to say that they're better than the other people, and just the insecurities will come. And so I'm reading that, and I've probably read that passage or things that are similar to that, or even talked about it here on this podcast, or with my clients for years in different ways. Just that idea that some people can get threatened from just you showing up as yourself and you having self-worth and boundaries. But, sometimes, and I know y'all listening to this can relate to this, sometimes a word will just hit you differently. Sometimes you can, after hearing the same lesson, same advice multiple times, it sinks into a different place. And that's what happened with this one. When I read it this time around, what I realized is that I have spent so much of my life dimming my light in order to be palatable and safe for the masses. I have learned that to be likable means to not be too much. It has been a form of appeasing people, even including here on Black Girls Heal. I intentionally, even though I've zeroed in on talking to women who struggle with intimacy disorders, even in how I might present topics, the stories that I share, the way that I show up online when I do show up online, there has been an overarching, the best word that I have right now is shadow, but it might be more like a veil of making sure that I do not offend, because I want to make sure that every woman who needs the words and needs the support and needs the encouragement that I have to give receives it. And I don't want to be too off-putting. But in me doing that, I've only been dimming who I am and the part of me that makes me great, that makes me amazing, that makes me beautiful, that makes me funny, that makes me uniquely myself. And no one asked me to do that. This is not a critique of other people. This is more of me having this realization that says the way that I learned to get acceptance, the way that I learned to feel safe in my community and places that I was around was for me to blend in. That was my coping mechanism, and it served very well for me. But like a lot of coping mechanisms that we are all unlearning, it has worked very well for us until it hasn't, until we've become aware of how it blocks us in other areas because it's not coming from a place of wholeness and healing and self-love. And so here is where we are going for today's podcast episode. This podcast episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about where the need to dim our light comes from. And I'm going to say a little bit of next steps that you can take to walk in your light and to show up as your full self. Hopefully the content of today's episode is helpful across the board in varying respects. I know that some people, I think for this topic there may be more variance, because I think some of us have personalities that were like shy-ware, humble-ware, and it's not coming from a place of ego, it is coming from a place of true confidence. Or you had family members or caregivers who gassed you up, who were all about being your biggest fans. Even if they weren't perfect around the board, that is an area that they were very supportive in. And so the idea of dimming your light might seem pretty strange, but again, hopefully something that I am able to teach today, in case you decide to finish today's episode, something that I share is something that hits a place that you need it. And if not, as always, take what you need and leave the rest. So let's go ahead and jump in. So one of the reasons that we will dim our light is because we are taught that is called humility. That we are taught that it is a way of being measured and showing up in our confidence, to always defer to others and say, well, I couldn't have done it without the support of somebody else, or, well, I just try as hard as I can every day, or this old thing, or, it's not me, it's all the Lord. And I'm all about giving praise to God. I'm all about you showing up and being honest and giving flowers to the people who've supported you. But you also deserve and can receive. It's okay and safe for you to receive praise as well. Because even if it was God, in case that is your belief system, even if it was God that gave you access to be able to do or show up in the way that you are, you still chose via your own free will to show up in that way. You still are choosing to use your voice, use your talent, adorn yourself, right? And that is amazing. That is obedience, and you deserve praise for that. It is not humility to deny the goodness that has been given to you and the goodness that you are walking in, the beauty that you have, right? It is goodness to own it and to own it fully. So we have to let that light shine in all of these ways, and shine boldly and shine proudly. Another reason why we will tend to dim our light is we may find that it's easier to not draw attention to ourselves. Maybe we grew up in homes, maybe there was alcoholism or some kind of drug addiction, some kind of domestic violence, some kind of emotional abuse, whatever it might be. But the role of the household or the environment is that whoever the attention was on would be the target for abuse, or the target for mocking, or the target for neglect, the target for being put in their place. And so you learn that it's easier for you just to not try to be too bold. It's easier for you to slip under the radar. And so you carry that on into other areas of your life as well. Some of us, this actually is a skill of ours. Some of us are really just observant people. We are by nature introverts. We are by nature the type of women who will just lay back and watch things evolve. And that's actually our strength. But when we combine it with the past that I described, or using it as a coping mechanism, we shift from operating in our strength, which is laying back and observing, to now we are hiding. You're going to hear me talk a lot about beauty and appearance when I talk about feminine energy, because it is one of the overarching characteristics of operating in your feminine energy. in that radiating that I'm talking about. Letting people see you and experience you is part of peak femininity. And so that's part of it, right? Like, this is part of the things that I'm learning about, but it's also one of the things that is a common thread for a lot of the women that I work with as they become healed and loved women, as they walk in their love worthiness. This is a part of themselves they have not yet tapped into, their full womanhood altogether. And it'd be so easy for me to give so many examples, because I like to give a variety of examples. It would be so easy for me to talk about not dimming our light and in the aspect of our accomplishments only, or talking about the talents that I've already mentioned before, and things that are based in us doing and things that are based in us performing, versus us just being seen and being admired for being the beautiful creatures that we are. And no matter our body shape, no matter our skin color, no matter our hair texture, no matter our height, no matter our stretch marks, no matter our blemishes or hyperpigmentation, no matter what it might be, that we own our light. And so many women are looking for the permission or the opportunity to show up as their full selves, or to have someone who comes in and shines the light on them, because they don't feel like they have a right to be holding the flashlight. Like, they don't have the right to be the one that's operating the spotlight, because then that means that you're being too much or too egotistical, right? That you have to share, right? That it's not all about you. Again, all the things that we are told, that normal, healthy confidence is actually pride, when really me owning the space that I am in, taking up the space that I am in, is healthy and appropriate. Is actually a sign of healing. And the healing is not only for you to be able to reclaim the parts that people may have tried to take from you, but it's also healing for the little girl who's looking for someone who looks like her, looking for someone who is showing what it's like to step into your full self as a Black woman. So, no, it is not safer for you to blend in. Related to that, the third reason why a lot of women will blend in is because they never had a healthy version of a woman showing up as her full self in front of her. So maybe her mother or mother figure was someone who had a lot of body image issues. Maybe she never showed up confidently. Maybe she was always on a diet. Maybe she only felt beautiful or accepted or loved when there was a romantic partner in her life. And maybe the way that she let some romantic partners treat her was less than what she should have. And so watching all this and internalizing all of this as little girls, even if you've tried your best to do the opposite, you still gain some messages on what it means to be beautiful, to be a woman, to be valued, to show yourself, right? If you watched her going back to needing to blend in for safety, if you watched her kind of fall in line with toxic family members instead of standing up for herself, or with a toxic partner who was abusive and she had to kind of go along to get along. One that is based in a talent and intelligence. Maybe your mother had a lot of giftings, and she, out of her own insecurities, out of her own self-denial, she didn't go out for the things that she was good in. Maybe she was an amazing artist and she never went out for it for fear of rejection, for fear of someone saying that she wasn't good enough. Maybe she was too afraid of overshadowing some people. Maybe she came from a family house that was filled with a lot of talented people, and so she was constantly comparing herself to those people or people outside of her home and never feeling like she measured up. And so the same thing, because you never saw someone press forward in that, it's been hard for you to own that for yourself. Or maybe you did see that, made a vow saying you would never be that person, but because you never had the model of intrinsic confidence and motivation, it's kind of been an uphill battle with you learning what does that look like for yourself. And I'm focusing on mother figures right now because this is a podcast for women. But this modeling definitely happens with all of our relationships, with our fathers, with our father figures, with our uncles, with our grandmas, with our cousins, with our mentors, with our siblings. We learn messages from all of these places for sure. And so those were the images that you had. So now you as an adult woman, no matter how much you are trying to show up as your full self, you don't really know the path of what that looks like. And so it can feel very uncomfortable. It can feel very against the grain because you don't know what's quite normal or not normal for you. Maybe you've tried to show up as your full self and shown up in all of your light and shine the spotlight on yourself. And it was a little bit lackluster. It was less than you actually thought it would be in your head. And so you are feeling discouraged. So you got over your fears and you recorded a TikTok video of you playing the guitar and it didn't get as many likes as you wanted it to. Or you put it up on YouTube and someone left a really weird or discouraging comment, and now you are second guessing yourself because you showed up in your light and the response that you got didn't feel as good. Maybe you've shown up exactly how you wanted to, but that imposter syndrome is now there, right? That fear that you can't really keep up this facade because it's not really you. So people really loved my poetry, but will they continue to like my poetry? People really loved this fashion design that I made, and I sewed this beautiful dress for someone, and they're telling me I should start my own Etsy shop, but what if no one actually wants to buy it, right? All of the self-doubt, all of the fear on whether or not that success that we had was actually real. So we will dim our light there to make sure that we're not disappointed down the road. But I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell all my students, whether or not you're a recovery school student or you did the You Are Worthy course. Every single desire and wish you have inside of you is there for a reason. It is there because it is part of your birthright. It is there because it is something that is God-given for you. So if you are 42 years old and you're saying, man, I ain't got no rhythm, but I wish I was a dancer. Man, if only I was given that talent. And every day of your life, or every time it comes to your remembrance, you have this really deep yearning, sis, that means you need to go and get dance lessons. That means that you have the desire and purpose and passion of a dancer, and all you're needing is support to help you curate that energy that's already there. So yes, maybe you didn't come out of the womb, two-stepping to the beat, but it sounds like you have everything you need inside of you to help you get there, that you will have the tenacity, that you have the love for the sport that it takes for you to get better, to keep coming back, to keep growing at it. It is not too late. And if you dim your light and feel that you're not worthy because of your age, because of your body size, because you don't act or present in the way that a dancer is supposedly supposed to act and present in, then you're cheating yourself. You are meant to show up exactly as you are in whatever stage is put in front of you. So I need you to go and make those dance lessons, sis. I need you to start recording yourself as you are practicing these dance moves and let yourself get better. Let yourself know that you are worthy even as you are working through your coordination, even as you're working on going as deep as you need to in some moves, even if you're still learning how to twerk. How many sisters out there want to know how to twerk and you're feeling bad about yourself because you can't, and you're feeling some envy? Girl, not everybody wants to know how to twerk, but you do. And because you do, that means that it's time for you to find a studio, to find a teacher, to find a YouTube video, and get in there and get some support and start to embrace all that you are. You are worthy of everything that you want to unlock inside of you. And so with that said, let's go ahead and get into my next steps. My next steps are simple. My next steps are for you to do exactly what I said, which is walking towards and moving closer to the things that bring you joy, to no longer hiding in the shadows, to thinking that next level version of myself, what would she do in this moment? What does she look like? What does she think? How does she act? And starting to embody her because she's already there. We talk a little bit about this in our You Are Worthy course. So some of this is sounding familiar, and we kind of talk more about where that self-doubt and those things come from. But in short, I want you to start to celebrate you. You are in charge of throwing your own parties. You are the one who's in charge of throwing your own parade. You are the one who has the right, the permission, the ability to be your biggest fan. And it can be amazing. You know, years ago when Snoop Dogg got his, I want to say it was his Hollywood star, and he was saying the speech. He went viral because he was talking about how he thanks himself for all the work he put in, all the long hours. He appreciates himself for the dedication and the spirit and the drive. And it was a split response. Some people were like, "Oh, he's so funny. This was obviously a joke." Some people thought that he was being egotistical and selfish. Some people thought it was amazing. I'm in the camp that thinks that that was amazing. I think that we wait too long and too often waiting for someone to see us and choose us and to give us the validation that we have in our heart, when we can give that to ourselves, that we deserve to give that to ourselves. This man worked for decades. Everything that he said, it was truth. He showed up for himself in the ways that he listed for decades, and he deserved to give himself that praise. Now, don't at me about other things, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ability and the right that we have to tell ourselves thank you and to celebrate our accomplishments in real time, in the moment. And with that, we teach people how to treat us. So if we go around with this energy that's like, don't worry about me, I'm just a humble servant, I'm just here just showing up and doing my best, I don't need that praise, I don't need all that, I don't need the flowers. Don't be surprised when you don't get the flowers. It's kind of like we're waiting for people to kind of chase us and do kind of this cat and mouse and say, you know what, no, Sheena, you say you don't want it, but I'm gonna give it to you. And it's like we're playing chicken with this, but no, it is okay for you to say, this is how I want to be loved. This is how I'm loving myself, so that when people see that, they join in with that. They say, okay, this is the standard that Sheena wants to be seen and appreciated. And because they see that standard, either they join in with it, or they feel threatened, or they say that's too much because they either can't do it or they don't want to do it, and that's fine. They will go and find somebody else who will take less. They will go and find someone else who hasn't really stepped into her value yet, but that has nothing to do with you, right? Healthy people who have healthy self-confidence, they see somebody else who's shining and they're like, oh, yes, I like that. I want to be around that. That feels good to be around someone who is owning their own worth. Because when you're actually doing that, that means you're able to give that same amount of love and appreciation to other people because you're full, right? Think about the people that you know. Hopefully you have several examples, but think about the people you know who are just really amazing people, really confident people. Typically, those people are also the most loving. They're the most loving because they fully are able to love themselves, and they give out of that abundance of love to other people as well. I hope that makes sense. So that is where you are. That's where you are trying to get to as a healed and loved woman, right? That is our goal. But you can only do that by letting that light shine. So let yourself break out of that box. Do what it is that you want to do. People are always going to have something to say. So that's why it's important to focus on what makes you happy. And you may need to expel some people and repel some people so that you can actually only have the people around you who are truly for you and able to rise with you into this next level version of yourself. So that is it for this episode. If you are wanting to work more on this worthiness stuff, if you're wanting to start to uproot these things that have been making you doubt yourself, a great first step is our You Are Worthy course. It is a baby version. It is a mini version of what we do in our bigger coaching program. So I love shooting women that resource. You can learn about it and enroll in it by going to blackgirlsheal.org/worthy and start to rewrite those stories. Start to rewrite those narratives that have been keeping us stuck and living in our bubble and living underneath what we actually want, and start creating the life that we do want. So that is it for this episode. I'm sending you all love, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Hey, so thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoy what you learned today, it doesn't have to stop here. Check out the Black Girls Heal website at blackgirlsheal.org for more resources to help you heal from intimacy disorders like love addiction and love avoidance. The best time to start or restart your healing journey is now. You can grab a free copy of our 5-step roadmap to heal love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And if you're on social media, feel free to follow us at Black Girls Heal on Instagram and Facebook.